Good morning, friends. How are you doing today? It is super early this morning. The sun has just come up. Our little garden buddy is still asleep. Kenneth is home from work this week, and so Declan is sleeping in with his dad. Kenneth never sleeps in. He's always up way before me. So the fact that they're both still asleep is just very odd today. But I'm going to take this time that I have to myself to spend it with you. Y'all, this garden tour is going to be something else. I'm so excited. The garden has made some major leaps this week. Y'all aren't going to believe it. It's just incredible. It's incredible. And I can't take the credit for this at all. With Kenneth being home this week, we have really been working hard on getting projects done. I have a lot of things going on behind the scenes. And I haven't done anything in my garden. I've come out a few times and picked some vegetables for dinner, but we've mostly lived on leftovers this week and hot dogs. That's it. It's been that crazy. I'm not even joking, guys. So we have butchered our meat chickens. We are working on building their chicken coop. We brought kittens into our home. We have been searching for months for kittens to bring in for mouse control, and I found two, and we have brought them in. Peach and Daisy, as in Princess Peach and Princess Daisy from Mario. If you know where Princess Daisy and Mario come together, let me know in the comments down below. I've had a few questions about Daisy and Mario, and people are very confused. So if you know where Daisy appears in Mario, let me know. We are millennials, I'm sorry to say. I'm a 90s baby, Kenneth's an 80s baby. We're Mario fans, guys. But Peach and Daisy, Declan is smitten with them completely. He just wants to play with them all day long, which is great because they're kittens and they have a whole lot of energy. But other than that, I have also been offered and accepted a speaking position in October. More details will come about that. I promise it'll come up. I just can't say anything yet. And what's really been taking a whole lot of my time is I decided to write a book. Not like a normal book. Like, can't do anything normal around here. I am working on a foraging guide for feeding meat rabbits. This book will include everything from how we transitioned our rabbits from pellets to a forage diet, what steps we took to make sure they stayed meat rabbit quality, that we're not losing any of our meat in the process, because a lot of people, if you know, forage diets don't always put the meat on an animal. A grain-fed cow is going to grow much faster than a grass-fed cow because you've got the extra calories and stuff in that grain that the cow doesn't have to work for, whereas in the grass, the cow has to work for it. So it's similar to meat rabbits. And I put our rabbits through this process to not lose any of their weight during the transition. We didn't want to lose any muscle mass. We didn't want to lose any... Our rabbits don't have hardly any fat on them anyways, but we didn't want to lose any fat if they did have it. Like, we did not want to lose body condition during the transition. And so I did it in a very systematic way. I'm sharing that in the book. I'm sharing different trees you can feed, tree hay you can feed, herbs, what not to feed. There's going to be an entire section on what not to feed your rabbits and why you should not feed that. I think that's very important. I will not be able to cover everything in the book in the entire world to feed a rabbit. There's no way. But if I can help you figure out why you should not feed something and you know what to look for, you can figure out if you can feed anything. Like, no matter where you're at, you should be able to figure it out using these basics. This and this inside of a plant means don't feed it, you know, something like that. So I'm really working on taking the what not to feed section. It'll have general, like, these are extremely toxic to rabbits. Do not feed them. But it'll also have why you should not feed them and what you should look for in plants near you to know if you can feed those or not. So It's taken a whole lot of my time right now. I'm a mom to a toddler, a small business owner, a stay-at-home mom, a gardener, a meat rabbit raiser. I do the homestead chores, and now I'm a book writer, so I have not done hardly anything in my garden this week. It has been on the back burner. It's a little green, not necessarily from all plant life, but a lot of weeds have grown up back here and stuff. So forgive the hot mess, but we're gonna get into the garden tour and see what we can find. See what's growing. Y'all are going to be amazed. I found one thing growing this morning that I haven't seen yet, and it is just making me smile so big because I am so happy about it. Let me show you. Before we even get into the garden, this baby right here needs some love. This is a buttercup squash plant, and it is massive. It is the biggest squash plant I have. Over here is nowhere near as big. And there's one over there that's a butternut that's not really as big. And there's another one back here that's not very big either. But this one is huge. And y'all, I love it. I don't know why it's just so much bigger than the other ones. I didn't do anything different, but I love that it is just taken over. It's gorgeous. Our sunflowers, some of them, they're alive, but they're kind of bent over, and now they're growing that way, so I didn't really mess with it. I've thought about taking some of this wood we have around here and staking it up, so I may do that this week if I have a chance. But if they're living like that, I'm letting them live their life. And speaking of sunflowers, we have our first sunflower open. Ah! Look how beautiful. Oh my gosh. Y'all, this wasn't open yesterday. I walked out this morning to start my garden tour, and I'm like, what's that yellow thing? It was a sunflower. I have my first sunflower open. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh my God, it's so pretty. When all of these up here are huge and open, because these are mammoth sunflowers, it's going to be gorgeous. And I can see it now. It is going to be so incredibly pretty. Let me show you what else is beautiful. It is something I have been waiting for, and I have been waiting for it, and it's happened. It's happened. Look at my archway. I have beans. I have massive beans. Look how long. These things grow incredibly fast. Incredibly fast. I have got to harvest a lot of these today. I don't know what I'm going to do with them yet. I mean, this one was like one of my first ones that appeared, and I didn't know when I should harvest it, and so I've been watching it. And now I know it's way too big. It's like 2 feet long. So I'm gonna let this one keep going and dry, and I will save it for seeds. And probably one down here too, this one down here, because it is thick. But the rest of these, I'm gonna go ahead and harvest them, and we're gonna find out a way to use them for dinner. But look at this. Y'all, this makes me so happy. I've been wanting this ever since I watched Jess's first garden tour, where she had Chinese red noodle beans hanging on her trellis as she walked through it, and y'all, it was gorgeous. It reminded me of a fairy tale garden. Oh my goodness. I am so incredibly happy with my garden and my beans. They're doing so good. It took forever, I feel like, to get to this point, but now, I mean, they will go. I've been watching them. That's why this one's so big, is to see how fast they grow. But this one right here is very skinny, is like new. It's probably about 36 hours after forming a little bean. This one is only like 5 days. So they grow extremely fast. And I don't know at what point I should be harvesting them, but we're gonna go ahead and harvest a bunch of them, put them in our apron, and tonight's dinner is going to be a lot of garden produce, which Kenneth is going to be thrilled that it's not leftovers or hot dogs. Hello. Are you a good bug or a bad bug? I think you're a good bug. I hope you're a good bug. I'm not gonna mess with you. Okay. Oh man, so many of these are huge. So this one is the one I'm letting hang here to go to seed. So together we're gonna see how big this thing gets. Now I have heard Chinese noodle beans really shining in a stir fry or like fried in some oil or butter with a little salt and pepper. That's how I prefer my green beans anyways. They're okay boiled. I mean, I'm not discounting boiled green beans. But if I can fry them up in some butter with some garlic and salt and pepper, oh my goodness. That is my go-to. I love it. Love it. So I think me and these beans are going to get along very well. Okay, so while we're in the garden, we also need to check the base for tomatoes, because remember I have my Beta Lux tomatoes that are growing along this side of the trellis, and it's much easier to get to them from inside the trellis because ground cherries are on the other side of them, and those things went hog wild. And then I need to check this back here for cucumbers. Over here we have 15-year-old cave beans, is this lighter green that's growing up, and it has not produced anything yet, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. But let's start harvesting some tomatoes because I see some red ones. Beautiful. Anything that's dark orange, I'm going to go ahead and harvest as well. Like this one, we're not quite red, but it's orange enough that it will harvest fairly quickly, setting in the sun on my windowsill. And I will probably try to make sauce or something with these tomatoes tonight or tomorrow. So I'm going to go ahead and harvest all the ones that I can. Oh. Y'all, Declan's inside asleep. I was harvesting tomatoes and this little yellow ground cherry fell off. I don't normally get the ground cherries. Declan eats every single yellow one he can find. And then he tells me, I want more. I got a ground cherry today. That's the first one I've had in weeks. It was awesome. Okay, let's store our tomato harvest on the table so we don't squash them as we continue our tour. Now these tomatoes are fairly small. It's about the size. These are Beta Lux tomatoes. So the funny thing about my Beta Lux tomatoes are, they're the first tomatoes I ever grew. I grew them in a container. They are small tomatoes because they are meant to grow in containers. Beta Lux, I got them from Baker Creek. I wasn't going to grow them this year. I only grew them to use up the seeds I had. However, they have been the best tomatoes. I had a germination. Like almost every single one of them germinated. They are the best tomatoes I've had in my garden. They were my earliest producers. They have produced more tomatoes than anything else I have. A lot of my tomato plants didn't make it. If you haven't seen those videos, a lot of my tomato plants have been devastated this year. These tomatoes have thrived. And they have thrived on neglect. I have barely even tied some of them up. Most of them are leaned over. I've kind of weaved them through the trellis as I've went, and that's about it. That's about all I've done, and they are just producing like crazy. So if I can learn how to save my own seeds, which I am working on this year, I will save seeds from these tomatoes and grow them again. Beta Lux has earned its place in my garden again for next year. Okay, so not much of a cucumber harvest there, but I gave the cucumber plant a very much needed haircut. As you can see, I've got a pile of leaves down here. Anything that looked diseased or was trailing out into the walkway, getting stepped on, got cut back. I am a big believer in cutting away what is looking diseased and unhealthy. It takes a plant a whole lot of work to repair those things, but they're going to keep trying as long as they can. And so by cutting that away, it can focus its energy into what I wanted to focus its energy in, and that is fruit production. It has plenty of green stuff trailing up and over that I'm not terribly worried about giving it such a drastic haircut. So my garden tunnel is looking beautiful, and I am super stoked. Let's visit this over here. My pepper plants along here are not doing anything impressive yet. They still have little bitty peppers on them, but nothing I've really been able to harvest at this point. Kind of disappointed. So if you've been following my tomato saga, these are my San Marzano tomatoes, and they're hanging in there, guys. They're still producing fruit. This one particularly looks beautiful. The one next to it is looking a little wilted, so I'm a little concerned. They may not all make it, but I will get fruit from at least some of them. Some of their fruit is already starting to get golden and start ripening, so I'm excited. It's just at the beginning of blushing. I have seen a few with some blossom end rot going on, so I really need to get some calcium out here to take care of that. So you can see all the blossom end rot forming on these. Well, unfortunately, all of the San Marzano tomatoes that I was hoping were going to be ripe all have blossom end rot. So I need to get out here and add calcium to my beds. In the past, I've done this just by crushing up tums and sprinkling them in, watering them in. That's probably what I will do this time as well. I know there's other ways to do it, and next year I will be more proactive and putting calcium, hopefully in the form of an egg, plus probably a little extra calcium supplement, in my beds when I prepare them for my tomatoes. So I went ahead and picked off all of them that I seen that had blossom end rot, because these tomatoes will actually keep growing on the vine until they rot out, and I don't want my tomatoes wasting its energy on rotten fruit. So I picked off everything I seen with blossom end rot, gave them a little bit of a haircut going on. I haven't pruned my tomato plants, and I can't tell you how long. This is my only living Amish paste tomato. It is still hanging in there, still looks beautiful. It's doing really well. It's got a lot of fruit on it, but it's not red yet. I'm hopeful that this one is going to pull through. As far as our other Amish paste tomatoes, I have one here in the center that looks like it's trying to hang on. It's struggling. It's very wilted, but it's hanging on. It's got ripe tomatoes. So this brown one right here it's gone. It's gone. The only reason I haven't pulled it up yet is because its tomatoes are hanging on and they're ripening on the vine. Look at that. If I had pulled that tomato plant, I wouldn't have this tomato. It didn't produce a whole ton. It's got 3 more tomatoes on its vine, but I'm going to let it hang in there till all of those ripen, and then I will pull that plant out. The one that is here that's struggling, hanging in there though, it has 2 ripe tomatoes. I have 3 Amish paste tomatoes that ended up ripening. I'm so excited. I didn't think I would get any. Now, one problem I keep having is my basil keeps trying to go to seed. I'm going to go through and harvest several stems off each and every single basil plant, except for one. I will show it to you here in a little bit, and I'm going to save it for seeds. I learned to save basil seeds last year. It's the first seed I ever learned to save, and it was so incredibly easy, and it produced a ton. It's a little tedious to sit there and save all of the seeds on the seed pods because there's so many, like it's thousands and thousands. But my plan is to save those seeds, keep back what we need for next year's garden, and then the rest I'm going to scatter throughout the property with our grass seed and let them grow wild. Basil is a wonderful forage for your animals, and they're perennials. If they go to seed, wherever their seed lands, they're going to come back. So I actually will just scatter them, let them grow wild. I'm going to do that with a lot of our herbs if I have too many seeds. Because we raise our animals on forage, having a multi-species forage growing is the best option. We don't want one type of grass growing out here. We don't want, you know, even just 2 types of grass out here. I need multiple stuff growing out here so that all of our animals' nutritional needs are met. And that means I need to scatter a bunch of different seeds. And if I got herb seeds for free, that's what I'm going to scatter for free. Even things like cucumber seeds, if I have a ton of cucumbers that just grow up and I have to save seeds from them and I have too many seeds or whatever, I can scatter those. We have wild cucumbers that grow out here. They're called creeping cucumbers, and our animals love to eat the leaves and foliage and stuff off of those. We never let them get big enough to actually produce cucumbers, but from my research, when the cucumbers are produced, they look like normal cucumbers, and when they ripen, they get black. Not sure if you can eat them, but our animals love the foliage and it grows wild. So that's another one that I could scatter and they will eat and love. Little bumblebee going around pollinating all of my cucumber flowers. Y'all, I don't like bees, but I am very, very thankful for the work they do in our garden. I just want them to stay pretty far away from me. Okay, so that ended up pretty off topic, but the point of that is I'm gonna go through and harvest a bunch of my basil. I'm gonna let one basil plant from each type of basil, the biggest, bushiest one I have from each type, because I have 2 types in my garden, go to seed. And then I will work on saving those seed pods in a later video. Takes a little bit. They're not gonna be ready till about fall. I think last year I saved seeds while we were carving our pumpkins. So I did that. Look at all this basil! Now I cut that plant way, way, way far back. Like, look at this massive thing of basil. And it may not come back. It should, but it may not come back. And I'm okay with that because I plant basil in just about every bed. I have more basil than I know what to do with. And I have at least one more bed right here next to me that I'm gonna go ahead and harvest just like this, of this same type of basil before we even move on to the other one. Now, what am I gonna do with this? I will get some twine and tie twine around the bottom of it and hang it up in my pantry. Our pantry is where our solar power inverter is, and that thing puts off heat, so I keep a fan in there circulating the air to keep the heat out of there. But it keeps it at a fairly warm temperature. And so I'm gonna hang these up from a bar across the top by the twine and let them sit in that pantry where the air is circulating, where it's a little on the warmer side, and let them dry out that way. In the past, if I needed to dry things out to save seeds, like if I wanted peppers to dry or something like that, I would set them on a cookie sheet in my oven and cut the oven light on, and then in morning and then at night I would just go through and like shake them around so that they turn different sides. And it takes a few days. I think last time it took me like 3 days, because we are very humid here, to get it to dry. And I just leave the oven cracked. When I need to use the oven, I take the cookie sheet out, set it up on top, use the oven. Once it's done and it's cooled back down, I put the cookie sheet back in it, and I'm good to go. So that's another thing you can do, but this is way too much to do that in the oven with. So I'm just going to tie twine around the bottom and hang it up. Now, alternatively, if you are in a drier climate, like the Midwest or something, you could hang these up outside from your porch railings or something like that and let them dry that way. You just don't want to do it in the sun, because the UV rays will actually cause them to lose some of their nutrition and some of their flavor. So shaded area, airflow, and just let them dry. And then I will go through and remove all of my leaves. I've got a mortar and pestle. I've got a food processor if I really want to use it. And I'll just grind them down and put them up for food storage in the future. And next year I will have all of my own basil to use. All right, so more basil cut up. Now this basil is blue spice basil. It smells fantastic. This was a freed seed packet I got from Baker Creek. So all of this basil was completely free. All I had to do was stick it in the ground. How incredible. And I will have a ton of basil seed to continuously grow basil from here on out, and it'll all be free basil. I haven't seen any of our Genovese basil that's extremely big and bushy, so we're gonna leave those alone for now and just wait maybe next week we can harvest some of those. For now, I'm just going to keep the heads pinched off, keep them bushing out, and we'll see when we get there. Okay, let's harvest our cucumbers. Now, I have already made refrigerator pickles. I just put out a video on pickling relish, which was so good. I made pulled pork from canned pork the other night, and that pickled sweet relish was so good on top of it. And I have some massive cucumbers in here. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. They are like way big for pickles, so I may have to make even more relish. I find the bigger cucumbers do better in relish than they do in pickles. But if there's any that's way, way big and way overripe, those will go to the chickens as chicken feed. Like, look at this big old mumba jumba. Now, these aren't huge in terms of that, but a lot of my cucumbers are space saver cucumbers, and so they're supposed to stay small. So this is fairly large, and I might consider this too large for pickles. I mean, it's big. But I don't consider this too large to eat fresh or for relish. And apron you go. This is more the size I like for my pickles. Now, all of these leaves that I am trimming off are to increase my airflow, but also to help the bees find our flowers easier. And all of these will go to the goats this morning for feed. Rabbits can eat cucumber leaves. Mine don't seem to like them too much, so they mostly go to my goats. That's the best I can do with cucumber Jenga. I feel like if you like puzzles, grow a whole lot of cucumbers in a very small place and try to figure out how to trellis them all so they don't run along the ground. My squash are like spilling out. I have squash. This is the second one so far that I have harvested. The last one was white. It was okay. I'm hoping the yellow's better. This one might actually trellis up. It is so incredibly large. But yes, that's better. Well, we only got one squash out of the deal, but I got one trellis, and the rest of them kind of moved around and cut back a little bit. I need to bring out some more strips to tie them up and try to get the rest of them trellised up because, like I said, they're massive and it should have been done a whole long time ago. So as far as my peppers over here, still nothing to report there. I'm gonna go put this guy on the table though so he can chill out with our tomatoes and cucumbers because my apron is getting way heavy. I'm gonna go ahead and empty this bad boy out because we got a whole lot more garden to get to. Yeah, we're not even halfway done with the garden, and this garden harvest this morning is massive. Oh my goodness. Plus, I have leaves all over the place that I have trimmed off of different plants that I will take and feed to our animals. The only ones that will not go to our animals are the tomato plant leaves. I do not feed any portion of tomato plants to any of my animals. They are on the toxic list for rabbits. You can feed them the fruit of the tomato, but it's not recommended just because it's a fruit, but not the leaves or anything like that. And so I just don't feed it to any of our animals just to be on the safe side since it is in the nightshade family. Let's check out this bed, my zucchini. I'm pretty sure I should have a zucchini ready to harvest. So as far as this bed goes, this tomato is about the only one that is doing anything. It looks like a San Marzano. The rest of these have pretty much died. This one is basically growing wild. And so I'm just letting it go because it's doing its healthiest, doing its thing. So I'm leaving it alone. This basil over here is the one that is the blue spice basil that I'm letting go to seed. It is large, it is in charge, and it is almost completely fully flowered out. So to let it go to seed, I will just let all of those flowers bloom, let it stay like it is until the seed pods on it dry, and then we'll harvest it together. Evidently, somebody used my basil as a hatching ground. We have had cicadas all over the place this year, so that's interesting. So these over here are my zucchinis. They were also supposed to be trellis on the trellis like my squash, and things got away from me and it never got done. However, I I have a zucchini. I kind of broke the top off of it trying to harvest it, but that's okay. I'm about to eat it for breakfast. But I have a zucchini. My first zucchini I've ever grown myself. Another zucchini. The bees are now coming around these zucchini plants. I've never seen them over here before. I think it was M.I. Gardner that did a video. Maybe it wasn't. I can't remember who said it, but one of the YouTube videos I was watching said, if your zucchini and squash plants are producing blossoms but not fruit, one reason that may be happening is they're overgrown and the bees can't find the flowers to pollinate them. So I not only cut back to maintain my zucchini and squash and to feed the leaves to my animals, but to allow the bees a better chance to pollinate my flowers. And since I have trimmed these two over here, there are several bees, honeybees, that have like zoomed in on these plants, and I don't see any on these. So we're gonna get to trimming these so that they can keep moving that way. Another zucchini. That is 3 I have harvested this morning. I've never been able to harvest zucchini before. They haven't been producing. Now they are, and I've already got 3. I also see 1, 2. I see 2 more zucchini that are growing. They're not big enough to harvest yet. Those wild cucumber plants I mentioned earlier in a video, this is them. They grow all over, and I just feed them to the animals. So our zucchini are happier, our bees are happier, they're buzzing all around. We've got lots of leaves to feed to the goats. They're gonna have a lot of squash and cucumber leaves this morning as a snack. So this is our squash bed. I have watermelons growing in this bed also. This little watermelon here is already got little babies on it. My okra here is finally starting to produce okra. I am thrilled. We got little okra pods all over. See, this one was a flower, or is a flower, that's coming out of this pod. And then once that is done, then an okra will form. Oh, look at this. My first okra flower that I've gotten to see bloom yet. It's not done yet, but it is blooming, and they are beautiful when they bloom. Here's the other side of my okra bed. No blooms. Let's check the other okra bed for blooms. There's more of that wild cucumber growing. See it? Grows everywhere. No blooms. Oh, there's another one. That one's opened up just a little more. Aren't they pretty? Yo, I had sweet potatoes in here as ground cover, but something come through and ate them all. I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. It's almost okra season. Y'all, I am so excited. I love fried okra. Oh my God. My southern heart, I could eat that just about every night. And pickled okra, I grew up eating pickled okra, so good. Chop okra up, put it in vegetable soups and stews. It's really, really good for your digestive system. And if you're somebody who doesn't like it slimy, because a lot of people find okra to be slimy, putting it in a soup or stew will really, really help that because it disperses that sliminess. The mucilagin or something like that is what it's called. But anyways, it's very mucousy and it coats your intestines and helps them heal and be very healthy. So it's really, really good for you. And in winter, soups and stews, it is perfect. You just chop it up and freeze it and it's ready to go in when you're ready for it. Garden season is kicking off to a awesome start. We have a heck of a harvest already today. Yes! Okay, we're almost done. We gotta check out our corn bed, our pumpkins, and our beans on the back, and then I got a story about my potatoes. I think it's my only negative story this week, so there's that. That's the plus, right? Lots of positives this week, only one negative. I'll take it. Look at this corn jungle behind me. Look, guys. We even have tassels. We got corn forming. Yes. Down here at the bottom is our pumpkins that I'm planted. Excuse me, I'm talking here. Down here is our pumpkins that I planted for ground cover. As those grow up and branch out, they will protect my corn as it ripens from like raccoons and stuff, because they don't like the pokies on the pumpkins. I got a video last night. I'll have to see if I can put it on here. If not, go check Instagram. It's gonna be today's Instagram reel. I had a froggy hanging out in my corn last night after the rainstorm. He's just chilling in there. I guess he just rode out the rainstorm in there. And it was so precious. I love the cornfield. This is just normal yellow eating corn. I think it's sweet corn. I don't know if you can use that for popcorn or not. Next year I will definitely have to grow some popcorn, because Declan is a very big popcorn fan. And so it'd be nice to produce our popcorn for him. Back here on our beans, our Cherokee Trail of Tear beans. I have blossoms. No beans yet, but it has started setting blossoms. So hopefully beans coming soon. Our black coat runner beans that's putting off these beautiful red blossoms have flowered, but I haven't seen any beans set, and they've been flowering for a while, but no beans have been set yet. On the other side we have Old Homestead. I think those are also called Kentucky Wonders. They have just produced their first beans. So only 2 I see so far. So I'm obviously hoping for more, but I've got 2. Oh, there's a third. All right, well, we'll hold out hope that we got more coming in soon. Those aren't quite big enough for me to harvest yet, because I know my beans over here are really producing, and I'm gonna get some really big pods because I haven't picked them in quite a few days. So I need to wait and get these instead. These beans down here are my dragon tongue, and I have not picked any beans from here yet. Oh, I see some. Oh, look how pretty. Look how pretty those beans are. Oh, I love it. There's another one. Oh yeah, this one little plant's producing, man. Let's see how many more we got. Found you. Oh, there's one down there. So let's harvest our first dragon tongue beans together. Stevia plant check-in. Look at how massive it's gotten. It's now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these little stems that's going to keep growing up. I am so incredibly pleased. And then as these get bigger, I will actually take and cut some cuttings off and root them and plant them in more pots and stuff, and keep doing that until I have a huge stevia field. I've not harvested these beans in several days, so I'm expecting a large amount of beans. Oh my goodness, look. Those are all beans. Beans, 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 good Lord. Let's dump these out on the table and see how many we got going on. Oh, I forgot I had 2 zucchini in here. Zucchini. Still a whole lot of beans. Yes! Y'all, this table's getting so incredibly full. This is going to be a long video, guys, so I hope you're sticking with me to the end. We're almost done with our garden tour. I'm sorry, it's been a lot. It's a lot today. We got a lot of harvest. We just got a lot today. My cucumbers and squash plants are growing up. Not getting very big yet, but we're getting there. We're growing. Okay, so potatoes are last on our agenda, and they are ones that did have a little bit of a negative this week. I found out I have garden voles, V-O-L-E-S. They are like moles that live underground. They kind of look like mouse, rats, whatever you want to call them. And they will eat your potatoes from under the ground. They dig little tunnels. They'll come up and eat your produce. And you won't even know it till you go to harvest. I've been harvesting potatoes here and there for dinners and stuff when we needed them. And I noticed I wasn't getting a very big harvest, but I thought maybe I did something wrong. And then the other day, if you go to Instagram and see my Instagram reel, I had a vole eat one of my potatoes. And I know this because I found the tunnel under the potato, and it has teeth marks in it, and it's like only part of the potatoes eaten, and it has little teeth marks and everything in it. Man, guys. And since then, it has rained, so we have not harvested our potatoes yet. Let's see what we got going on. No potato, little potato. Oh, yep, there's a tunnel. Little potatoes. See his little tunnel? It goes under all of my little potato bed. Yeah, there's a grub there. They will also eat your potatoes. Y'all, this ain't good. So this is what I'm talking about. See this big massive potato plant? This is all that's left. This and this. Off of this huge plant. And where I dug it up, you can see a hole. And that big old fat worm. I got quite the harvest. I'll lay them out on the table here in a second. Let me show you what else I found. See the potato? It's literally being eaten by a little garden vole. They are loving my potato bed. I also found what looks to be a little bitty egg. Not sure what kind of egg. Maybe a snake egg. A little bitty. There's only one. It's teeny tiny. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I'm gonna leave it alone for now and see what I think later. If any of y'all know what it is, let me know so I know. And I'm just throwing all of these potato scraps over into my compost pile back here behind me. Let me show you what else I found. Did you know that potatoes can produce fruit? Look at this. It looks like a tomato. Ain't it cute? I don't know if they're edible, but it produced fruit. All right, friends, here it is, our garden harvest. Our beans, the potatoes I just dug up, that is everything I got out of that huge potato bed. The voles really destroyed it this year. I got 3 zucchini, 6 cucumbers. These are red Chinese noodle beans, a potato that escaped, squash, 3 more cucumbers. So it makes 9 total. Some beautiful tomatoes, and a ton of basil. Can y'all believe that? I love garden season. All of this food will feed my family. I could not have bought all of this fresh food at the grocery store, especially the prices that people are asking right now for the cost of what it took for me to plant it, y'all. This was nowhere near what I would spend at the grocery store. So I'm super excited. I'm very, very thrilled with this harvest. That's all I have for you today, friends. I hope you enjoyed this harvest tour, this garden tour, whatever you want to call it. And until next time, friends, bye. I will see you later.